thanks for being here. So we're going to be talking about a bunch of things, but the key idea that something super interesting is happening with Watson, and I think the community is just starting to. I guess first of all, it's recent, and you guys have been doing a great job communicating it. But two, I think the community is just starting to sort of really understand what's going on here. So we're going to be talking about all of this. So what Watson is as a product, what Watson is as a business unit, because it's a very important part of the effort, and then maybe how startups, a lot of people here are in startups, can work with Watson. But maybe start with maybe 1 minute on yourself and your journey and what you do. Yes.
All right. So I'm one of the rarities in the room. I started working as an IBM researcher in 1988. Yes, I'm old. And been with IBM ever since. Kind of random jobs. I used to do geometric modeling once upon a time. Was a compiler guy when that was trendy. Mobile computing. Lived in China for a few years. Bounced around. It's been fun. And been both in our, I always say, our money-making business and research, in and out several times. And they asked me to, I had part of the Watson team reporting to me. We formed a new business unit in early January. Our anniversary was yesterday. And they asked me to run the Watson research and development team. And here I am.
And so you cover R&D, but you also run, if I read correctly, you run the $100 million venture fund.
No, I wish. Sorry, a peer of mine.
Are you saying just so that you don't get cornered?
No, it's true. A peer of mine does, but I have influence, so it's all is not lost. So yeah, seriously. So one of the things we did when we formed the group, this whole notion of cognitive computing is a somewhat new idea, and one of the things that you want to do with a new technology and new idea is encourage people to try it out. So we've done a number of things. We've stood up a developer cloud with a bunch of RESTful Watson services on it, which you can find. And we created a $100 million investment fund, and we've done, I guess, 3 minority investments in startups who have decided to work with us. And as well, we had an interesting activity actually last Friday. One of the things we started doing is teaching Watson in universities. So we set up the standard upper-level undergraduate course where you do one thing all year. And it was a course on cognitive computing, learning to build Watson applications. So we stood up instances of Watsons for each of the 10 schools, and they built applications. We had a contest for the winner, who was announced last Friday. University of Texas. Number 2 was University of Toronto. Number 3 was California, Berkeley. And the winner got $100,000 of seed funding to turn their cool idea into a business. It was kind of fun, actually.
Awesome. So actually, while we're on the topic, so the investment fund, that's for startups that leverage Watson?
Yep.
Okay. And for those who are interested to hear, you guys invest across stages?
Later stage.
Later stage. So
yeah.
That's Series B, Series C type thing?
B and C, yeah.
Okay.
We want people to sort of kind of know where their feet are first.
And how does one go about connecting with you guys from a fundraising perspective?
Oh, it's pretty easy, actually. You can look up online. You can find us looking up Watson, probably Watson ecosystem. We'll get you there, and you get to a place where you enroll. Tell us why you're interested, and we'll find you. And if that takes too long, just drop me an email, and I can short circuit. Not everybody, please. Okay.
Okay, so let's go back to the beginning. So Watson was that thing. I mean, from my perspective, that was a few years ago. There was the Jeopardy story, and that was super interesting. And I'll let you tell it, but it was kind of striking. But at the time, it felt like Watson was this very powerful but super early stage. capability with a very large hardware component. I think that took the whole room and all the things. And so, what was it then, and what has it become now?
All right. So, so there's 40 or 50 years of research and development behind it, obviously. And what was interesting about Watson is it was both a really impressive piece of engineering, leveraging a bunch of NLP and machine learning techniques. So some amazing engineering in terms of reasoning capability, scoring, and kind of manic devotion by a team that was shut in a room for about, their choice, not ours, for about 4 years. And basically, they had a graph where they looked at the horizontal axis was percentage of questions answered. Sorry, that's the horizontal axis. The vertical axis was percent got right. And really, the higher the ratio, the better you were. We knew where the experts were. So it was a question of when would we get there. We knew we would get there eventually. We didn't quite know whether we would get there soon enough to win when we played back in 2011. And there was a couple of oopsies during the match, which is normal. So we knew we would win eventually. So it began as a very specific piece of technology to do open domain question and answering, and it's evolved in a number of ways. So we've generalized the linguistic pipelines in Watson to deal with other kinds of question and answer. So the original one was a hyper-redundant corpus looking for what we call factoids, a word or two. We now do passages. We now do, one of the popular uses of Watson is frequently answered questions, help kinds of things. We've broadened, added a few other technologies. One for discovery, which is kind of interesting. Been using it initially in life sciences, and I guess the area is called catching bad guys or girls. And we've had some kind of interesting surprises. So it's evolved from this initial game playing thing to kind of a family of technologies which have this kind of cognitive flavor to them. A couple of interesting ones. One we debuted at South by Southwest in Austin last year. One of the people in the Watson team is got an interesting resume. He's a combination computer scientist and trained chef. His name's Florian, cool guy. And he got interested in the science, chemistry of flavors. So he built a discovery engine to discover recipes, and we debuted it with a food truck at South by Southwest in Austin. It was really popular, even though it was raining. And it was kind of all sorts of funny stories there. One of the more interesting ones. So we had a social networking campaign where we would, ask the populace at South by Southwest to tell us what they wanted to eat tomorrow. We had a couple of award-winning chefs in the truck, and there'd be a contest every day, and off they would go and create a recipe with Watson. And the funniest thing that I remember was so I'm Canadian, by the way, but there was a team from, any Canadians in the audience? Anybody from Quebec? Nobody cares. Anybody from Quebec? Okay, poutine, yes? Poutine. Awesome. Okay, so ask him what poutine is later. The contingent from Montreal hijacked the competition and asked us to make poutine. Now, poutine is cheese curds, gravy, and French fries. It's really good. Trust me. It's Montreal street food. And so the team made, Argentinian tomato-based poutine, courtesy of Watson. So, by the way, there's a cookbook out also, and it's available on Amazon. Done with the Institute of Culinary Education. There's kind of 50 Watson-created recipes. They're actually mostly pretty good and interesting, along with the history of how it went. So, okay, so it's a long answer to a short question. I'm sorry. And
the product now is essentially it's a cloud service.
It's actually a family of cognitive capabilities, and we make it available as a set of RESTful services on the cloud. We have this team that works with startups, and we also have some applications and solution patterns, if you like, that we see again and again that we work with customers to turn into cognitive applications.
And so it's a Q&A metaphor, right?
One of them. So the one we call one of the so there's a class of things we call advisors. Engagement advisor is a question and answer metaphor. Discovery is a cognitive knowledge-based graph search. So the idea being to help subject matter experts discover new relationships amongst, several million documents, that kind of thing. The chef, Watson, as we call it, is also discovery-based. We have one that does decision support. The first people to call us after the Watson game, we expected the standard, I should say, really, really interesting IBM customers, financial houses, didn't call us. In fact, oncologists, cancer doctors did. They were interested in how Watson could help them diagnose patients, keep doctors' information about therapies current. So, we start up with the easy stuff, oncology. We got to recipes later. So it's been an interesting journey.
And so there's this interesting debate in, I guess, AI, for lack of a better term, around horizontal approaches versus vertical approaches. So the horizontal field is, hey, we got this global brain, and maybe we can build vertical applications on top of it, but we basically have this core technology that sort of can cover everything. And then you have another school of thought around vertical solutions, where people say, well, actually the future of AI is to have a lot of different little bots that are going to be able to do just one thing, are going to be completely dumb to do anything else, but that one thing they'll do better than anybody else. So presumably you guys fall in the former camp. What's the case for it? I mean, is there...
We're sort of more in the latter camp, actually. So the right way to think of Watson is, and the engineering is a lot of cooperating little bots. So think of all of the Watson engines as having an NLP component, which is trained according to the domain. So there isn't one Watson. There's a bunch of them. So, for example, we have a trained domain to understand the terminology around financial services. It knows how to extract information, text, mostly text, unstructured text, and dynamically discover relationships. And the way it does it, there's lots of little reasoners, spatial reasoners, temporal reasoners, reasoners who understand something about financial instruments, about 100 of them. And they sort of cooperate. The engineering that's interesting in the system, which frankly I don't understand, because the people who work for me are much smarter than I am, is how they did the scoring to combine the results from each of those little reasoners and combine them to build an answer. So we sort of implement Camp A using Camp B, I guess is the best way to say it.
And I'm sure that's probably an answer that would...
it's a beer conversation, but...
Yes, that would take much more time, but at a high level, how does it work? I mean, what's sort of the overall, I guess, architecture?
The overall flow for all of them. I mean, there's a training and ingestion process, so Watson has to be trained. And depending on whether you're doing discovery or question and answer, you train it in different ways.
And you train it by feeding it domain-specific documents.
Yep.
So you provide the corpus.
Yeah, you provide a corpus, and we do the usual blind test set thing, and measure precision and recall. Nothing magical there. And when the precision and recall are adequate for a particular task at hand, off we go. Some of the use cases return just a single response. Often we find you want to give a set of responses back with the confidence for each of them, and then people use the system and kind of dig in from there. Okay.
I guess tell us a little bit more about the product. Actually, maybe even before going into that, so let's just zone in on some use cases. So you mentioned cancer. I think that was Sloan Kettering Memorial.
And MD Anderson in Texas, and a couple others.
And so what... can you give us just like a little more sort of color on exactly what was done and what was,
sure.
At a very practical level, how people used it?
So two very different use cases. So the MD Anderson folks in Houston, we've been working with them for a couple of years, and they've been very focused, not specifically on cancer, but kind of looking at the, if you like, clinical support for cancer patients. So it does clinical trial matching, which is one of the use cases that Watson also deals with. It has been trained by, I guess, subject matter expertise at MD Anderson, as well as the literature to, you feed them a patient record, and it's going to try to match that patient record against the literature that it has and against trained cases that we've given it. That's really how, so you train it, that particular case, you train it with knowledge manifested by his case histories for patients. And MSK is a little, Memorial Sloan Kettering is a little different, and it's a combination of cases that they have, synthetic as well as published. We work with them to identify the evidence. One of the things we learned about systems like Watson, if you're going to deploy it, is people want to know why. You give it an answer, and they want evidence. So the system is designed to sort of drill down into the evidence. So a lot of work with Memorial Sloan Kettering on characterizing evidence that supported the techniques that they had internally developed.
Great. What's on the roadmap from a product standpoint? I read something about mobile.
Yep. Well, I mean, mobile is one of the ways that people are most interested in accessing it, no surprise. Mobile, voice. So there's I mentioned the Watson Developer Cloud. It's a Cloud Foundry-based implementation. The IBM version of that's called Bluemix. And there's a Watson zone on it with about 7 services, more coming next year. The services run the gamut from question and answer I talked about. There's a really interesting one that we found from a research team where if you give me 3,000 words of your choice, writing, blog, email, we'll give you something that looks a lot like a personality profile, just by understanding the tone in which you write. Some people think it's really cool. Some people, the creepometer kind of goes up a little bit. There's a lot of interesting use cases for it. So, for example, back to the previous discussion, if you want to hire somebody, you'd like to know not just what they do, but how do they do it. And if you get some insight in an individual, you can flesh out a team quite a bit better. So that's a service called Personality Insights. It's coming out this quarter, actually. So, list of services coming out. We are engaging with some of the various solutions that I talked about, worldwide. A lot of interest in very specific geographies. One that surprised me a little bit, but in hindsight I shouldn't have been. They love Watson in Japan. Home of AI. They just love it. So there's a lot of work going on overseas. But downstream, just kind of more of the same. Adding new domains. One by one, we've done healthcare, life sciences, financial services. We're looking at some of other industries. And the way we're doing is going at it industry by industry. We've stayed away mostly from the consumer side, except for the recipe thing. And that's mostly because our DNA is to go into businesses in an industries-focused way.
And last question from me, and then I'll open it up to people here. So a little bit to that point. So that's a big deal for IBM, right? I mean, it sounds like this a big bet that's being made around this was $1 billion worth of investment and some pretty high revenue expectations from what I read. And this also seems to be sort of a part of the repositioning of IBM as an innovative company. And you guys just opened this beautiful facility on Astor Place and all those things. Can you talk about this a little bit?
Sure. And we're allowed to drink beer in public. We decided that Watson needed a headquarters, a home. And one of the things that's been interesting when you talk about it with customers, they want to kind of see it. So Watson began life as a 2,300 Power 7 servers running a multi-processing version of Watson, all in memory, running on Linux. The original cluster is still in Yorktown, and people still want to see it. We've improved it by a factor of about 1,700, so now it's a lot smaller. You know. But people still want to come see Watson, so we set up by the way, the building, if anybody's seen the building on Astor Place with the bunny rabbit in the lobby, that's us. It's not our bunny rabbit, it's Coons, but we're on upstairs. So we set up a kind of an experience center where people can come in and kind of understand what we've been doing. Again, we go through sort of use cases, value, show people some applications that have been built on it, and you know, that's the headquarters. Obviously, we're spread out. My R&D team is spread out in 4 countries, I guess, and the team is worldwide. But we decided we needed a home, and we thought about it real hard. New York-based company, where else but Silicon Alley? So it's a great neighborhood. I moved my office down there. I'm enjoying it. It's a little gritty, but it's nice.
Yeah, it's much better than it was 10 years ago.
Yeah, I understand that. I've been here for a while, so I do remember. I wouldn't have gone there 10 years ago.
Great. No, and you know, just as a side comment. So obviously, you know, we're big fans of New York as a center for anything related to data startups, data science, big data, and all the things. So it's awesome that the sort of local champion, even though you're one of the largest companies in the world, would choose to be here and be part of this community.
We are really excited to be. I smile every time I walk into the office. We're really excited to be in New York City. There's an energy here that I just thrive on every day. It's a great place to build a business.
Very cool. All right, questions.
Hi, my name is Matt Kroll. I work for MongoDB. So in the marketplace, you see a lot of companies playing around with a lot of different data science tools today, especially, Hadoop is a huge market, and, there's obviously SAS, which has been around forever. And yet it sounds like there's an amazing opportunity with Watson to make a Watson as a service, where instead of companies having to play around with these technologies, do all these complicated MapReduce jobs, nothing that they really enjoy doing, could just almost outsource this to Watson. So I guess my question is, what is the market that Watson's going after? And, is there an opportunity to kind of replace all these other data science tools that teams are using now with, say, hey, we have something built, why not just dump all the data into Watson and just have it done for you?
So it's available as a service. And you can pretty much do that. I wouldn't think that it replaces everything. It does something fairly specific. Question and answer we've talked about. Discovery isn't available as a service on the cloud yet for everybody, but it will be. I wouldn't assert that it replaces Hadoop. In fact, it's based on UEMA. It's an Apache project. You probably know what that is. But it provides a lot of value. And I guess one of the things that we're really excited about is, we think there's a kind of a new class of computing that, we as a community are kind of uncovering here. And we're really excited to build out a set of cloud-based services people can use to build these kinds of applications without, dealing with the pain that you're talking about. And the APIs are very simple. The question and answer API is obviously once it's been trained, the API is, give it a question and you get back a list of answers with confidences. Pretty simple.
Great. So time for one more. This gentleman raised his hand faster.
Thanks very much. Cheers, by the way.
Thank you.
So you chose NLP as the cognitive framework for Watson. Can you give us a little bit of insight on that, and also what elements of that you decided to work with?
Yeah. So there's actually, I guess there's another Watson branded product I did mention called Watson Analytics that has a lot of machine learning, natural language capabilities to essentially ask a question of spreadsheets and tables, and the system figures out how to render an answer using some kind of graph, histogram, pie chart, whatever it might be. The reason we picked NLP, we've had teams at IBM and IBM Research looking at machine translation, speech technologies for a very long time. I think they started in the 60s, early 60s. So there's a lot of expertise, and one of the, I'm not going to talk about the Turing test even a little, but one of the long-standing questions, which is related, was can you build a system that does open domain question and answer in, I'll call, real time. When I say real time, I mean fast enough to have a conversation. And that was really the genesis of it. So the reason for NLP is most of the world's data is unstructured, messy, noisy, and the rest of it. The team got interested in trying to understand how you could answer a question by extracting a signal from all of the noise that's out there. So NLP is a piece, but obviously there's a lot of machine learning techniques, and we're not proud. We'll use anything, and we have. But that's why that's the genesis of the NLP basis.
All right. Well, that's all the time we have. So thanks very much for dropping by, sharing a beer with us, and telling us about Watson.